Hi, I'm Brian Dunn, and welcome to the most important podcast ever. What makes it so important? It's not about me, it's about you. This podcast is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, the moments of resilience, the lessons learned, and the small acts that made a big difference. From retail floors to basketball courts to boardrooms, we'll share the untold stories that shape lives and careers. This week, our guest is Eric Curry. And you may know, if you're deep into college basketball, you may know Eric is one of the most respected referees in NCAA basketball, where every call he makes is under the brightest lights and always somebody's not happy in front of thousands of people. I met Eric many years ago when I was at Best Buy, and Eric was working with the Minnesota Twins. He's worked Sun Country Airlines. He's worked at Cambria. He's had this amazing career with great success in boardrooms and with businesses and on the hardwood. So what has always stood out to me about Eric, though, is he's a man full of integrity. He's a man worthy of respect, and he's always got a great story. and and he introduced me to Harmon Killebrew, who's one of my, God rest his soul, one of my all-time favorite. And if you didn't know Harmon, he was one of the nicest men you'd ever meet in your life. So with that, I'd like to introduce my good friend Eric Curry, and welcome to the show, Eric.
Brian, thank you. It's great to be here, and great to see you again. And like we said, the next time will not be on a podcast, but it'll be over a steak dinner somewhere.
I'd love it. And Eric, you've worn so many hats. How do you introduce yourself these days?
You know what? I actually introduce myself as a husband and a father, because that really has happened since we connected.
Yep.
So my wife Kelly, who is a great athlete from University of Minnesota, coached there. We got married 11 years ago. I thought that perhaps being a dad had, kind of passed me by, because I refer to myself as a veteran dad, not an old dad. But my two sons, Brecken. Actually, Brecken's middle name, Brian, is Harmon.
I love it.
After the guy that was my mentor and dear friend, and our friend. And then so Brecken is 8, Hayes is 5, and probably later on this evening I'll be throwing batting practice in the front yard. So that's how I introduce myself, because that's the most important things to me. And the work opportunities and at Cambria now and the basketball thing are secondary.
Yeah, that's awesome, Eric. That's exactly how it should be. And I am so happy for you, because there's not a doubt it's the most important job I've ever had. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, I do.
And
by the way, it's been a pleasure to know all 3 of your sons. Does Joe still imitate my offensive foul call?
He does. And it's still one of my favorite things, but he limits it to special occasions, like at Christmas he'll do it for me.
So do I. And I hope I get him right when I do it. So there you go.
I got to tell you, when I tune into a game and I see you out there, I'm probably one of the few people in America watching the ref. I just love it. I love, and I remember this. I just have to go off on a tangent for a second. I remember watching you work a game, and I can't remember who the coach was, but they were just barking.
That could have been a long list.
And you just looked at him and said, basically, yeah, real good. Let's go. Just zero shits given.
No, that's exactly it. That's it.
So let me get a couple of questions off the top of my head here, and then we'll go wherever you want to go.
Sure.
What do you think separates a good official from a great one?
Wow. There are so many now. That's really an interesting question to start off with. There's so many really good referees. And I think good referees do some very important things really well. Got to be a good play caller. I mean, if you don't get plays right, you're gonna probably have a short career, because that's what coaches think about, right? Get plays right, and be consistent, which is, I think, is really important. You have to be a manager of the game, right? Because it's kind of a sales thing, right? You're selling to players, coaches, and fans. And if players, coaches, and fans aren't buying what you're selling that night, could be a long night. So good referees do that, and good referees have to be good communicators. And so then when I think of what's that next level, what's the great ones do, and I've been fortunate to work with some great ones, and Scott Thornley out west, who basically taught me, and John Higgins and Roger Ayers and guys like that basketball people certainly know because they're household names.
You bet.
Those guys presented a presence on the floor. They made everybody in their crew better. That was number one. They did all the other things I talked about. They did them really well. And then the details of just the smallest details were always taken care of. So when you go to work with one of those guys and others that I didn't name, and there's more, there's a bunch more, you know that you could just take care of your stuff that night, take care of your area, your part of the game, and they gave you the confidence to be able to do that. So great referees really do that, and they elevate the crew profile. So when you and I and Roger perhaps walk out on the floor, the coach says, "Roger's here. If something's going to happen tonight, he's going to take care of it. He'll fix it." And so everybody kind of just gets calm. We want coaches to be calm, comfortable. We want them to do their job. Let us do our job. Mm-hmm. And then the fans can do whatever job they want to do.
I think that's so interesting. You mentioned you've got to get the play right. And I think of that like, you see great athletes with that twitch reflex and just boom, they can jump out of the gym. Do you think you learn your way to that? Or is that something you brought into it, that you had that instinct? Because I can't believe how many calls officials get right. Because it's bang, bang.
We get a few more right than sometimes we get credit for. And I appreciate you saying that. And you've watched a lot of basketball. I think there's two things. First of all, I think that in order to really have a chance right off the bat, you got to have a feel for the game, right? You've had to played. That's why we're encouraging players in high school and college that aren't going to go on and play for Will Dunn in Houston with the Rockets or whoever. If they want to stay involved in a game that they love, officiating is the way to do it, right?
Yeah.
And they have a leg up on everybody else because they have a feel for the game. So the feel starts, right? And then you put we've got this library of plays in our head that I think, and we can talk about that as it pertains to business later, but we got this library of plays in our heads. We've said, I've seen that play before, right? And so that's the instinctive part of that, is having the experience of doing it over and over and over. And then obviously you got to take those plays and put it in the context of a big stage.
It's fascinating. And no matter what call you make, half the people are going to be unhappy, half are going to be happy. And you know what? That has for certain implications for business.
Sure it does. What I try not to do is if you make everybody mad on the same play. Years ago, and just a real quick story, years ago, we had, I was working a game, and I won't say who it was, and it was a big rivalry game. And we went off the floor, and one coach at one end thought it was a travel. The other coach at the other end thought it was a foul to end the half. And the crowd was going crazy. And then we saw we saw the play. We liked the play at halftime. And we came back out in the second half, and Terry Francona is a good friend of us, and he was at the game, and he was sitting on the front row, and he goes, "Hey, come here, Eric, come here." He comes over and says, "Listen," he says, when you make them both mad, you've done something right." Thanks, Tito. But that's it. I mean, every time you blow the whistle, at least half of them are going to be unhappy, and you just, you deal with that and go on. It's part of it.
Yeah, for sure. So you've had this fascinating career officiating that I could talk to you about with all of our time. And you've also had an extremely successful business career. And I'm just wondering, do the skills go back and forth between the two, or does one inform the other?
No, they both, the skills translate. My wife coached at Minnesota 2 different times, and then at McAllister. And she then was thinking about entering the business world a few years ago. And I told her, I think, well, I don't think, I know that the skill sets that you have, coaching, mentoring, recruiting, counseling, all of those things, you will be shocked how quickly they will translate to the business world. And she's done wonderfully with her job. Not surprising.
Of course.
I think one of my first jobs with Delta years ago was I was a red coat in Atlanta. And if anybody knows about the red coat program, that's one of those deals where generally the red coats get called in, not when somebody wants to tell you what a wonderful flight they had, how great the food was, the flight attendants were wonderful. And so I got real-time experience dealing with kind of crisis type things, right? People unhappy, and you had to be a certain way, calm things down. One of my really favorite books on leadership by Eugene Haybaker is called The Softer Side of Leadership. And in there, he says, great leaders do 3 things when disaster, hits, right? One is absorb the chaos, which I think is really important. Then 2, project calm, and 3, present hope. Well, I think that's what we do. We absorb the chaos, right? Somebody's upset with something we've done, the play, something's happened in the game. Then we've got to present calm and handle it calmly. Now, the presenting hope thing is not always. I can't always help you with the hope part of it, but those things are really transferable. So I think that it's very transferable. Things I learned on the basketball court, ways to handle things, I have taken to the C-suite and vice versa.
I can see that completely, and I love those 3 sort of rules. Absorbing the chaos is so important. You got to take the air out of the balloon, or the thing's going to explode. Got to do it.
Some nights the chaos, and some nights I've caused the chaos. So,
right.
So when you cause your own chaos, But
I've seen you do it when I've watched games you've called.
Of course,
I've seen you, and it's
you know what I tell young officials, Brian? If they haven't talked bad about you in the newspaper or on TV or wherever else, then you just haven't worked enough games.
Yeah, and don't you think? So I always say the best thing about the digital world we live in and the internet is that communities of interest can find each other. I love basketball. I love to golf, and I can find all kinds of stuff. You know what the worst thing is? Communities of interest can find each other.
Yeah.
And so somebody makes a bad call, it's blasted everywhere. And it seems to me that it's I don't think there's more people screaming. I think it's that the 10% on the lunatic fringes have a bigger microphone, or so it seems.
Yeah.
Do you find that technology? Do you find if your crew makes a bad call or a perceived bad call, do you see it get blasted around?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's all kinds of websites, and I think I don't look at it because I don't pull up my name and Google it because there's all kinds of silly things out there and what have you. But I think there's a website or a Twitter account. I don't have Twitter, but I think there's a Twitter account with my name on it. And there's a picture of me, and it says, somebody sent it to me, and underneath it says, he hates all of your teams equally. Well,
that's actually great.
Do they understand that's actually a compliment? But that means we're all flat. But no, these things, they get silly. The problem is, and it really hasn't been a problem. Let me say this. There's certain business websites you have to be on if you do what I do. And so, fortunately, I've only had once or twice where somebody's gotten on and tried to do some things. There have been some occasions where it has gotten really ugly for some officials. And listen, at the end of the day, it's completely unfair and really rough, because a lot of times it probably wasn't even somebody that was at the game. They're sitting in a basement somewhere. The internet and these blog sites and things are really the great hider, right? And it can be anybody out there. And so I don't go on and look at it, and B, if you see something like that, you just gotta keep going.
You got to have a short memory. You just got to blow it out, right? Hey, I want to shift gears a little bit. One of the first things that we really worked on together was the great work you did, and I really mean this, in the partnership you built with different brands around getting the Twins their new stadium.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I'd love it if you could talk a little bit about it, because I thought you were remarkable behind all that.
Thank you. You know what? Anytime you're in a partnership position, and I was the vice president of corporate partnerships for the Twins. Anytime you're in a partnership position like that, you're ultimately, one of your professional goals is to be able to do a new stadium and a new ballpark or a new arena or what have you. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. We played in a really bad venue with a really pretty good team. I started at the end of the 2000 season. So by 2001, we were getting better with the young guys. 2002, we were really good. And then it went from there. And all the time, we're trying to get the new ballpark. So what we did, I think, well, is we tried to make sure we were developing those relationships with Best Buy and Target and Dairy Queen and Dodge and some of those. And oddly enough, Brian, most of those people are still good friends of mine. Treasure Island, those types of people. And so we were doing the relationship building, the foundation building for when we were going to be able to get a new ballpark. We weren't quite sure when that was going to be. So when we finally had some clarity and we were going to build it at Target Field downtown, or down next to Target, then we were able to really start going in, and the naming rights were a big part of that. Best Buy was a big part of that as well, and Cambria, and that's where I met Marty and his family, Mitch and Mark and Mary, who are just tremendous, and I'm still working for him. So I told people I went down to see Marty in 2001. To sell a sponsorship, and he and I haven't been able to get rid of each other since, and that transcended the Twins, Sun Country, and now Cambria. But no, those were relationship foundation building things that led us to the real prize, which was opening that ballpark. And we had a very streamlined approach. It's gotten a little bit past that now, out of necessity, I believe, but we had 4 outfield wall signs. You had one of them. We had specific interaction areas. I think we were one of the first teams to really understand how to do the business to business thing and connect people. I remember picking up the phone and calling you and saying, we need Insignia TVs in this place. And talking to Patrick McGinnis, who was in Korea at 2:00 in the morning, working on the specs so you guys could build the commercial grade of Insignia, because it wasn't a commercial grade, correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
and I've seen Patrick since, and we've laughed about that. But so yeah, so then when we got that thing together, but the thing that I remember just about most of that, and we really did a good job, I think, using Harmon and Tony and Rod. I mean, we had iconic players. I mean, come on.
Oh my gosh, yes.
How good is that? I mean, we had some amazing guys. Scott Erickson, but Jack Morris, one of my great friends. And I remember coming over, if you remember this, to Sandy's place, and we were going to do the big reveal that you guys were going to be one of the cornerstone partners of the new ballpark. And Maurer, Joe came, Jack Morris came. It was in 2009. I won't forget it. And it was the first time you and I had done a lot of things together, but it was the first time I really saw you on the stage, right? And you were on. And Terry Ryan, who was our longtime GM, used to tell me, Eric, son, they are where they are for a reason. And to be honest with you, at that point in time, I thought he was always talking about, the Padres and the Royals and the Pirates, who at that point weren't very good. And that for the reason I began to realize, and it started with that event, that Brian Dunn was where he was for a reason. And that's because your people reacted to you and bought into, I mean, the definition of authority is being able to gather the troops in a mission that takes you in the right direction, and everybody buys in, and everybody bought in. It was a professional moment for me, and I'm not just saying that because this is your broadcast, but it was a professional moment for me that I'll never forget, and I remembered why you are where you are for a reason.
I love that phrase, and you're very generous, and I appreciate the kind words.
You had some pretty good folks too, with Sean and Barry and Debbie Estes, and
I was just going to say that Debbie Estes.
My goodness.
I want to get her on this podcast. Debbie Estes is one of the unsung heroes of the Twin Cities. She is
a Twin Cities gem without question. Still doing it over at the Minnesota Sports Council, which is badly needed. Has brought some amazing events here, and you're right about that. She is one of the unsung heroes, no question.
I certainly think so. It's interesting to me that you went from the Twins to Sun Country and Cambria. Would you like to talk about that progression?
Well, I left Sun Country, or I left the Twins. I'll tell you what, 10 years of going to ball games every night, and doing it as hard as we did, was getting there.
Yep.
And my refereeing career was starting to go that way. I was getting more games and things. And so I actually just took a couple years, did some consulting, which I really enjoyed. I had a consulting gig in Boston with a ticket company, and a wine company in Napa. So two pretty good spots, easy to get to. And so I just refereed. And so at some point, Marty had decided that because ultimately, Marty, I mean, when he decides something, then it happens. And he decided it was time for Eric to have a job. So he called me and he said, I want you to come to the plant, the Cambria plant. I knew he had bought Sun Country the year before, and he knew I was an airline guy. And he said, now we understand what we need. We need a sales focus. We need a customer experience focus. And Sun Country was just this gem, right? It was an iconic jewel of Minnesota. And that's why he bought it, because he believed in that. If you know the Davis family, they're Minnesota people.
Oh my goodness!
To the core.
Icons, Minnesota icons.
Another jewel. But so he said, "Hey, I'm gonna." And I said, "Well, Marty, my season is starting like in 2 weeks, and I got a lot of games." And he said, "It's all right. I'm going to put you in an office at Cambria. I want you to kind of observe what the operation is during the basketball season, and then go in." Well, I had to get into Sun Country about 2 months in, because not because it was so bad, it's because every time I missed a meeting, if I was on the road, I got another job. And so I ended up with the customer experience side. I had the flight attendant group. I had reservations. I had our sales group and our charter sales group. But there was just so much white space because they had gone through some bankruptcies, 2 of them, and there was a lot of people that were there, and there was some scars from those bankruptcies. And really,
Of course.
what we ended up doing was going in there and just listening and providing opportunities. I went to every flight attendant training class, recurrent. They have to go through recurrent every year, every one of them, for the whole summer, and spent an hour telling them what things we were looking at doing, getting their suggestions, giving them my email and phone number. Sometimes that got overused, but that's okay. But we did better things, and I think we were in a really good spot with Sun Country, good enough to where Marty knew that he couldn't. It needed to grow bigger. And that was going to be tough. And so he positioned it for sale, but I don't think with a lot of the things that we had done to repair some things. And the only thing I asked people over at Sun Country to do is not to say, this is how we've always done it. Because how we always done it got us to where we were. And just be open to looking at new things. You're going to have resources to be able to do new things and then grow it from there. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I think that that's a very good counsel. I also think, and I hate to give people excuses. I think it is one of the toughest and most messed up industries we have. It is it's brutal.
Somebody said, "How do you make $1 million owning an airline?" And basically, they say buy one for 20 million, and then sell it for $1 million. That's how you make $1 million. Hey, listen, I don't care how smart you are, and there's some smart people in the airline business.
Oh yeah,
you're only as smart as $100 a barrel of oil, and then out the window. And then you can't recover on fares fast enough to take a beating, because those fares are out there and you're buying flights, and so it's hard to recover quickly. And so it's a really, really tough business with skin tight margins, but it is a fun business. And the people that are in it have it in their blood. I went back to it a second time. But it's hard business.
Yeah, it's a real tough business. And I completely agree. I mean, it seems like it could be great fun, but there are so many variables that impact it for sure. Eric, our time is flying, and I don't want to miss, and you'll probably get a little embarrassed about this, but I know you do a great deal of giving back. You've done work with organizations like Crescent Cove and Make-A-Wish, and I'm just wondering how those experiences have shaped your perspective on life and leadership.
Well, I mean, I think that I've had a great faith journey, especially recently, and the Bible says faith without works is dead. And folks, if you're to whom much is given, much is expected, and we're expected. It's our duty. And I've been very fortunate to find a couple that really worked well. And the Crescent Cove was one of those things where that was a Harmon thing, to be honest with you. Harmon had gone through, a lot of people don't know, Harmon went through hospice, was in hospice in the 90s, and was very, very ill. And then came out of it, which doesn't happen very often. So he had a heart for hospice, and he had a heart for kids, and so he wanted to do something with that. And Katie and some of the great people at Crescent Cove started putting this together. We ended up raising enough funds through a number of things that we did to be able to purchase the adult hospice home from North Memorial that's in Brooklyn Center, and we basically turned that into a hospice home, but more importantly, a respite home, palliative care. There's nurses on duty there that allow a family that has a child that, or children that have very
Yeah.
challenging diseases to be able to get away sometime and spend a weekend there. I'm telling you, that's the greatest thing you can do for those folks. And obviously, the hospice thing is almost unspeakable. But to be able to see that and see some of the families and get to know some of the families that we had a kid that came there from all the way from North Carolina. We found out he was a North Carolina fan, and I was working a game at North Carolina, and actually in Atlanta. And we took a ball down, and Roy Williams, who's one of the great human beings in college, anywhere, but in college basketball, was delighted to sign it for that kid.
Awesome.
And so, you had a little crossover there. We've done some Make-A-Wish things with Final Four experiences, but you get to know some of these families, and then you look at your own children and say, they're by the grace of God. I mean, you understand that. I never understood that until those two guys.
Yeah.
Now I get it, and I get it very clear.
It changes everything, that moment
Yeah.
when you become a dad, and you understand the meaning of everything, what
Yeah.
this is all about, and unconditional love.
It's a perspective gain that's now I don't know if any of my 5-year-old is now calls me big fella. I've lost quite a bit of weight. I don't know where that came from, but I am now big fella.
Yeah.
Which is great, but it's a great experience, but
That,
giving back is our duty.
Yeah.
And we've all been given great platforms, whether it's in retail or leadership or basketball or whatever it happens to be. It's been one of the pleasures of my life to do that.
Our job is to be humble stewards of all these gifts we've been given,
Right.
and to make our corner of the world a little better. We're running short on time, Eric. I want to do a rapid fire. I got
Okay.
3 or 4 quick ones, and I'd love it if you would tell us a story you shared with me earlier this week. Okay?
Yep.
Toughest arena you've ever officiated in?
Toughest for the fans and things. Well, I'd always say the toughest places are places where there's not very many fans and there's some loud ones that, but sometimes you can ask them to make other plans in the middle of the game. Great arenas, San Diego State, Fish and Dutch and those guys that's unbelievable.
Okay.
Breslin Center and the Pit in Albuquerque are as good as they get, in my opinion.
Yeah, the pit is nuts, for sure.
That's
Most underrated.
Sorry, that's the draw in Albuquerque, right?
Yeah.
We always knew how good the team was going to be when the people at the courtyard where we stayed asked us for our tickets before we checked in. They did that. The tickets were at premium.
Yeah. Most underrated skill a referee can have?
Listening. We're all type A guys. We want to talk.
I love that.
Sometimes listening is probably better. Listening to whether it's the supervisor, another official that's got opinion, feedback for you, a coach, whatever. Listen first and strike next.
Yep, I think that's right. I think that's great. Your favorite pregame arena moment?
This is a good one because it was completely unexpected. And all I will say is this. I was at Michigan State pre-game, before the game, and Tom always comes out, by the way, and sits at pregame. Coach Izzo always. And one of the only guys to do that. Well, anyways, his son, Steven, was a senior. It was senior night. We're going through all this thing. And he would always come up and say hi to me, give me the hug and stuff before when he was doing it. And so I asked him that night, I said, hey, how's the big guy doing? He goes, terrible. And I said, really? He goes, yeah, I wish the student night or the senior night thing would have been before the game and not after, because he's kind of wound up a little bit and it's me. And I said, hey, I get it. I understand it. And because Stephen was always one that would come and, counsel me during a timeout and say, he didn't really mean that. And, stuff like that. Yes, he did. But that's okay. That's the great part of him, and probably one of the great coaches, one of the greatest coaches of our time. Anyway, so Stephen said, I said, hey, listen, I read part of an article on the way up here. Are you adopted? And he goes, yeah. And I go, hey, me too. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. And he says, hey, did you find your mother? And I hadn't read the second part of the story, which was that he knew who she was. He had watched her on Facebook a little bit. Tom and Lupe, when they had adopted him, had all the information. But I said, I have. And he goes, and he turned and I said, you find your mother? And I said, I did. And he goes, how was it? Sorry.
It's okay, Eric.
I said, dude, she's my best friend.
Yeah.
He goes, really? So he starts crying. I didn't know that he had not. Sorry.
It's okay.
I didn't know he hadn't found his mom. But he knew who she was. So fast forward, we agreed to go on. And so the next day, the associate AD at Michigan State called me and said, hey, I heard about that thing last night. And I said, which thing was that? And he goes, the Stephen thing. And he said, he would like to talk to you. And I said, well, look, this is a human game. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the thing that I wish people would understand. This is human beings refereeing a human game with human. That's it, right?
Yeah.
So we're humans, and
of course.
And gosh, you shed a few tears every once in a while. So at any rate, so I ended up getting in touch with him. He called me, told me the story about how he wanted to contact her, but he hadn't done it yet. And we talked several times during the summer. And he called me one day and said, today's the day. And he read me what he was going to write her. And he goes, wow. We talked a little bit longer. And he goes, what would you change? I said, nothing. It's not about me, about you.
Right.
Sorry, I put your slogan in there. And so he did that. And it's ongoing. But he's made contact with her. So the end of the story, we have a wonderful friendship. He's a tremendous young man. We were at Maui last year. Michigan State was there, and Tom came over to me. They stayed at the same hotel. Tom came over to me at the pool and said, hey, I just want to say thank you for what you've done for Stephen. And I said, you know what, Tom? I've gotten more out of this than he has, because I always hoped to pay it forward to someone else. And he's now going to have an experience that is life-changing for him. And so, and if anybody thinks that couriered favor with me in a really hard game 2 nights later, it did not, because the game's too fast. But you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't hurt to realize that people are humans. It was an impactful thing for me. I've got a wonderful friend who's a terrific young man. Has got a great life in front of him, and I was happy to be part of that. all because I should have been at another school that night, and somehow I got switched on to the Michigan State game. And I told Kelly, I said, God wanted me there that night.
That's right. That was the Holy Spirit moving you right there, changing the schedule.
No question.
Eric, I think that story illustrates so beautifully who you are as a human being, why I've been so proud to work with you, why our friendship has endured, even though we haven't tended to it all that much.
We're going to fix that.
We are going to fix that because I got nothing but love and respect for you, Eric. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your story with us, and the human elements and the professional elements. So
thank you. It's been my honor. Thank you.
Well, it's been my great pleasure. And let's make this the beginning of our next chapter.
I can't wait.
Good. So that's it for this episode of the most important podcast ever. Huge thanks to my friend Eric Curry for sharing his story, and an even bigger thanks to you for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with someone who might find it meaningful. And remember, you can watch us on our YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. And with that, we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian.